Okay. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. Today, I will present the results of my master thesis research integrated with previously published data from Peresani et al. From 2022. This preliminary study focuses on the analysis of fauna remains from the Mousterian deposits of Vajo Salsone. Vajo Salsone was a site located in northeastern Italy in the Lessini Mountains, north to the town of Verona, an area where many sites referable to Middle Paleolithic can be found, including Riparo Tagliente, Grotta di Fumane, and Grotta della Ghiacciaia. The site was discovered in 2017 during the construction of a truck road. It appeared as a karstic cavity filled with lithic tools and bones remains, referable to the Middle Paleolithic. All the archaeological material analyzed in these studies come from the stratigraphic unit 5, which was investigated using 15 centimeter squares and 10 artificial sticks. The lithic industry is characterized by the Levallois method and retouch tools. Particularly noteworthy are foliated tools, which are quite rare west to the Balkan Peninsula. And in Italy now, they have been found here and during some surface surveys in the northern Apennine. At present, the chronology of Vajo Salsone can only be inferred from the lithic industry, which dates to the late Mousterian, while radiometric dating is still in progress. The purpose of this study were to reconstruct the faunal spectrum, study the taphonomy, reconstruct the human-animal interaction, and obtain seasonality data. 42,421 findings were analyzed, and anatomical and taxonomic identification was possible for 2018 elements. The unidentified remains were divided by compact and spongy bone tissue and subdivided by size classes. The unidentified elements also included bone fragments. The faunal composition of Vajo Salsone consists almost entirely of mammals and for a small percentage of birds. For the remains identified at a species level, it was possible to calculate the minimum number of individuals, and considering the age at death, the red deer is represented by at least 20 individuals. The wolf is represented by 4 individuals and the fox by 2. Among the ungulates, red deer is the most abundant species, while roe deer and chamois are quite rare. Elk is represented by only 3 remains, and among carnivores, the wolf is the most common, followed by the red fox. The presence of bear is attested by only 1 remain. Several remains could only be classified more broadly as caprine, cervide, etc., because they lack diagnostic morphological features, or were too fragmented to identify the genus or species level. Currently, only for red deer, we can propose some preliminary consideration regarding their use and exploitation. Based on age of death, the red deer sample includes at least 20 individuals, 1 juvenile, 3 subadults, and 16 adults. This assessment is based on the presence of lower decisus teeth, DP4, and isolated permanent lower teeth, M3, as well or worse stages in the jaw. Looking at the distribution of anatomical elements, both part of the skull with a high percentage of isolated teeth and part of the appendicular skeleton are present. Among these, tarsals and phalanges are most common, followed by carpus, tibia, and metatarsals. Elements of the axial skeleton are almost entirely absent, though some vertebrae and ribs identified as cervide size 4, so to medium to large animal weighing 30 to 160 kilos, may belong to red deer. For the red deer skeletal survival index shows that the most represented element is the astragalus. Other bones of the appendicular skeleton are less common and show higher fermentation, especially femur, tibia, humerus, and radius. This indicates intentional fracturing of the long bones. Cranial elements are well represented, particularly the lower teeth. And the small number of exoskeleton elements may be due to preservation issues and because bones like ribs and vertebrae are difficult to identify to species level. Taken together, skeletal representation and fragmentation patterns suggest that carcasses were brought into the site more or less complete, at least for more than half of the red deer, without selective treatment at the hunting location. Regarding the edaphic modifications, these are mostly represented by the presence of compression, followed by marks of manganese, and the weathering is rather light. About compressions, these are present on a very consistent number of remains, and in some cases they cemented together the bones with the lithic artifacts. And since the concretion on the lithic tools were studied, we want to apply different analysis also on the concretion present on the bones. So here are some of the further analysis that we will do. For the marks of biological origin, these are mostly represented by the action of fruits, followed by rodents, and finally by carnivores. Anthropic marks are only present on deer and on medium and large cervidae remains, and the use of bones is attested by the presence of retouchers. Considering the red deer anatomical elements, marks of butchery are mostly present on the segment of the appendicular skeleton, exploited not only for the removal of the meat, but also for the consumption of marrow. Cut marks suggesting skinning and disarticulation operation are identified respectively on the tarsal and at the level of the articular heads of the long bones, while those relative to the fleshing activities are localized on the diaphyseal surface of the metapodials. Here, there are some examples. On the top, there is an astragalus with a series of short and repeated cut marks, probably due to the skinning action. Then there is a fragment of coxal bone showing a series of insistent cut marks and chop marks in proximity of the acetabulum associated to the disarticulation of the femur. And on the bottom, there is a proximal epiphyse of Homero with cut marks associated with disarticulation of the forelimb. Meso and microwear analyses were conducted on the teeth of red deer from Vajo Salsone to investigate their diet. These analyses were performed at the biomarkers laboratory at the IPES Institute in Tarragona, Spain. And mesowear reflects the diet consumed over the last 6 months to 1 year of the animal's life. For Vajo Salsone, 25 molars were selected, and their cusp morphology was observed and scored. Microwear, on the other hand, reflects the diet consumed during the last week of the animal's life. In this case, 60 red deer teeth were selected, and high resolution molds were created to produce casts using transparent epoxy resin. The positive replicas were analyzed under a stereo microscope to quantify the proportion of microcharacteristics on the enamel, which provide information about the type of diet. Combining mesowear and microwear analysis increased the precision of dietary reconstruction, allowing short-term, so seasonal diets, to be distinguished from long-term, annual average diets. The micro-characteristics present on the enamel can be divided into 3 categories: gouges, large deep marks with irregular contours, pits, circular or subcircular marks, and scratches, elongated marks with a straight direction. For each tooth, the number of pits and scratches was quantified in 2 subsamples of 0.16 square millimeters, and the mean was value, and the mean value was then calculated. quantifying pits and scratches on the occlusal surface of teeth and comparing them with the extant population provide insights into ungulates' dietary habits. Scratches are particularly informative for detecting seasonal dietary changes. For the results, the MED-Zooarch score at Vajo Salsone compared to modern ungulates with known diets falls between those of mixed feeders and grazers. And for microware, the diet of the individuals falls within the range of mixed feeder with a tendency towards browsing. This browse-dominated mixed feeding is also reflected in the proportion of scratches, which is below systemically scratches per counting unit. And as red deer diets vary seasonally, this data suggests that the animal died during the favorable season. Microware analysis also allow the estimation of the duration of site occupation by evaluating the timing of ungulate mortality events. Following the method proposed by Rivals et al. From 2015, the coefficient of variation and standard deviation of red deer scratch variability were calculated and visualized on a heat map divided in three areas corresponding to different duration. There is A for 1 season or shorter, B for a period longer than 1 season, and C that stand for 2 separate events occurring in non-continuous season, for example, autumn and spring. The results plotted on the heat map indicate intermediate values close to the boundary between zone A and B. And these results suggest that the accumulation of red deer occur over 1 or more consecutive seasons. So to sum it up, the high incidence of red deer is consistent with falmal data from other Middle Paleolithic stratigraphic sequences of Riparo Tagliente and Grotta di Fumane. The microware results, together with the presence of antler remains with pedicles, may suggest that the animals were hunted during a good season, a period where we have softer vegetation. And the microware of Vajo Salsone show a more variable signal compared to the more consistent browsing patterns observed at Grotta di Fumane, San Bernardino, and the Nadale. To conclude, the reconstruction of the faunal spectrum showed that the most represented taxon at Vajo Salsone is Cervus elaphus, and this suggests that Neanderthals that frequented the site may be exploited forested environment for hunting activities. From a taphonomic perspective, the assemblage is highly fragmented and show similar post-depositional alteration affecting both lithic and lithic tools and faunal remains. The presence of carnivore and rodent marks on some remains suggests that the site may have been experienced long periods of abandonment. And concerning human and animal interaction, anthropic marks were found exclusively on red deer and cervid remains. The skeletal representation and fragmentation pattern suggests that red deer carcasses were brought into the site relatively complete. And finally, the seasonality data indicate individuals with mixed feeding diet tending toward browsing, likely hunted during the good season. So this study sets the stage for further investigation and methodological application to obtain a complete view of the faunal resources and subsistence dynamics of Neanderthal groups. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. That was really nice.
Thank you.
So before we move to some questions, there is a suggestion here. So I will do some little hearts whenever there is a 5 minutes until the end of the presentation. I know presenters might not see it very well. And at the end, when you surpass the time, we will do a non-smiling face. Okay, I'm not sure if, are there questions for Lavinia? Please raise your hands. I think it will show it here in the chat. if not, I have a very small question, Lavinia. Maybe you explain it, but it wasn't clear to me. Why are you doing analysis to the concretions themselves?
Because there are already some published data on the concretion of the lithic, and since it's a karstic cavity, is just an information just to be more sure that lithic and faunal remains come from this same first depositional environment, and also to see the taphonomic implication that the concretion can have on the bone.
Okay, thank you so much. There is one question by Max.
Hi, great talk. Quick question on the microwear. Was there a reason that you could only get 48 out of the 60 casts to show microwear? Was there taphonomic alteration, or what was the explanation for that?
From the first selection of teeth, we had to discharge some of the or the teeth because of taphonomic reasons, because sometimes taphonomy can obliterate the micro characteristics that we were counting. For the MED-Zooarch, on the other hand, we excluded a large number because we can apply that method only to the molars. So,
okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, I've got another one, if that's okay with you. And that you guys have seen the whole assemblage, I believe. I'm not sure, because my direct question is, are there any evidence other than birds of any other small prey, like rabbits or turtles or
actually there were some rodents that were studied, and also herpetofauna. But on the sample that I have analyzed, I didn't find them.
No rabbits whatsoever?
As far as I know, at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.